Hey guys, Bex, we're at roadtour.com. This is an emergency broadcast. I'm just going crazy here in my little study. I've been just warming into solar panels and all that. I know everything about solar panels now. And I've come up with conclusions I talk about, but I need to run it by someone who's sane, someone who knows the industry. I brought on Andy Schectman to help us with that. And then also to beg him to sell us silver if he's got any left or whatever he has left to see what he could do for Road to Ruta people. Andy, first of all, how's it going in your world? Do you see anything different or what's going on?
You know, it's interesting because it will go down to me as one of the biggest mysteries of my career that there are so few people who see what's happening clearly. And because the market riggers have done such a fantastic job of suppressing the price, while at the same time draining all of the exchanges and the ETFs of the world and wherever else they can find silver, people gullible enough to let go of it at these levels. There are so many people who have no idea what's coming at them and therefore aren't getting out of the way. So while business is still stronger than it was last year, which was by far our biggest year ever, I would simply say to you that the market that we see right now in the retail market and the wholesale market, where premiums have bottomed out to the lowest level I've seen in 4 years, where availability has not been this good literally since prior to 2020, makes zero sense to me. Zero. So yeah, business is strong, but the expansion into the mainstream, there are so many people that are going to be blindsided by what's coming. They have no idea. So what is flush and low premium now can, like that, change when there is an event, whatever event that is. And I have felt for a long time it comes with the banking industry, but whatever that event is that wakes people up can change that. But I will tell you that it's busy, but not as busy in my mind. I'm more concerned as a father of 3 kids and thinking about the world they're growing up in than I've ever been in my career. And I can't understand why guys like you and I are, and the people listening to you, are some of the only sane people who see this. And supposedly the rational world doesn't get it yet. So it's a mystery to me, brother. It truly is a mystery, but it's an opportunity and a good one for the rest of us.
Well, I think I have an answer for that as to why no one can see it. For the last couple of weeks, I've just been diving into the official numbers, the official projections, what the Silver Institute has put out, what Metals Focus has put out. Bank of America just came out with a silver study, and I'm looking at this stuff and I'm saying, where are these numbers coming from? So I figured out where they're coming from, and I figured out that they're lying. Not only lying, they're lying to an extent that makes everybody think that nothing's going on different in the silver market. And I'm going to share some pages with everybody here. If I can figure out how to do it. Share screen. Can you see my screen? Not yet, huh?
No, sir, I do not.
Share screen. I swear I had this. Hang on.
It's okay. Everyone likes looking at you anyway.
Let me see here. Oh, there you go. Just got to hit the right button, right? All right.
Still don't see it though. Oh, now I do. Now I got you.
There we go. So this is the Bible. This is the Bible according to the people in silver. This is the annual silver survey put out by the Silver Institute. Everybody pretty much works off these grand parameters of what they put out as far as supply and demand, what comes out in industrial photography, and then their plug numbers are the investment numbers. Now, we have all known, most of us have known that the investment numbers were always way off. And we're out scratching our heads. Wait, what about all this silver and all that silver? And they just don't ever talk about it. It's so bad. Keith Neumeyer left the whole program saying this is ridiculous. But what I've been digging into is photovoltaics. Now, this is solar panels. This is so big, such a gigantic part of what the future of silver is, that I went into their numbers a few months back and I said, these numbers are flat out wrong. Flat out wrong. They are saying that this year, photovoltaics for 2023 forecast, now this came out in April, mind you, would be 161 million ounces. So I started going back in the prior year, 140 for 2022. This was like off the charts. No one believed it. They were, every year they've projected photovoltaics to do a hell of a lot less than what is actual. So they had photovoltaics going from 28% growth in 2022, from 21 to 22, to 15% growth. And I'm saying, where do you get these numbers? Nowhere in the photovoltaic solar world are they saying this. And they're pretty good analysts. And they're saying massive growth, massive. So I looked, and just today they announced the number of 58% growth in solar panels, surging to 413 gigawatts. Now, 58% growth from where we were on the solar survey, that would mean something in the realm of over 200 million ounces, which is a gigantic miss for these guys. But here's the deal. They came out with something in November, kind of updated numbers, and here's what they said. They didn't specifically say what it was that made the industrial number jump to 632 from right here, 576. They didn't say what it was because they didn't split it out, but something made it jump. And then everything else they had to jigger because their numbers weren't working again. But here's the thing with these guys. See all these industrial demand numbers from going back to 2013? They changed every single one of them.
Oh my gosh.
Every single one, because their numbers weren't working, so they just changed history. It is crazy. For example, 2019 industrial total 509. 2019 industrial total 509. 2019 industrial total 523. You can't change history. Everybody's got their silver survey from every year. All they have to do is look at it.
What do they have 2020 at? Because they have 2020 at 509 there.
Okay, 2020, 509. Let's go to 2020 in their original 488.
Oh, geez.
It's insane, but they had to, I think what they're doing is trying to hide what they didn't tell people. And what they didn't tell people is they were miscalculating the amount of silver used in solar panels. And I'm going to show you this, and it's pretty obvious. This is what they use. Now, this is from a Bloomberg article. This is milligrams per watt. And if you have this correct number, you can very easily say, okay, they installed 460 gigawatts of power, and then one watt equals 1 billion gigawatts. Do the little calculation. It's very simple. You can get how much silver is used every year in solar, right? If this number is correct. So I'm looking at this number. I'm like, where have I seen these numbers before? There was a study put out right here by the New Wales University. Excellent study. I mean, these guys went into how solar panels are made, what's going on. This was a big deal about a month ago, because their conclusion was by 2050, 95% of the silver is going to be used in solar panels. And we're all scratching our head going, what are they talking about? But here's what got me. They are saying, and they've gone down. I mean, they went down every single little piece. This is the correct number of how many milligrams of silver is used for every watt of electricity created from a solar panel. In 3 different types of solar panels. There's PERCs, there's TOPCons, and they're SGH. Each of them use a different amount of silver. The PERC is the old technology. Now they're saying in this Bloomberg article, it says 10 milligrams for the PERC. So I go over here and they're saying between 14 and 15 milligrams. So they missed it by 50%. And then TOPCon here is about averaging 23. And you go back to the Bloomberg guys and they're saying 13. They missed it by 65%. And then heterojunction uses the most. These guys are saying 22. The actual is about 33, 34 milligrams per watt. And I'm like, how could they get this so wrong? So I dug in where Silver Institute and Metals Focus and all this, where they get this number. And it was from Bloomberg. And then I go, okay, where did Bloomberg get it? They got it from Bloomberg. Bloomberg got it from their subscription service. And that's it. So I'm like, okay, if they're using these numbers, they're completely wrong. But not only that, they are projecting such a tiny amount of photovoltaics, 15% growth, and the actual was 58%, is what they're saying right now. They're going to revise that up to about 65, I think, because China is literally building mass fields of solar panels, massively amount. And this is part of what I want to talk to you about. So I did the numbers. I did the calculation. I took the numbers that they gave us, the latest on solar installations, 413 gigawatts. And I came up with, and this is going to blow your mind, because they were saying about 160 million ounces of silver will be used in 2023 for solar. The actual number is 287 million ounces.
Jesus.
Almost 300 million ounces. And that's as of November. So December, there's also something going on in China that I read about, is they give a certain amount of allotments to, if you install your solar panels by the end of the year, you get this much of a bonus. So everybody and their mother right now is installing solar panels in China. So that number could jump up greatly. As a matter of fact, another article I was reading said they had made 500 gigawatts of solar power to be installed. So they have it, but and you know, you got to buy the silver to make it. So it's close to 500, which is 383 million ounces of silver used in 2023.
Can I ask you, what does it say for 2023 as the non-investment demand total in ounces? Can you see that?
Okay, which one? The one they just put out?
79 million ounces. Total non-investment demand.
Okay, so do you want their latest, which they put out?
Yeah, because I read a report and it says total non-investment demand was revised upward to 879 million ounces, or 21 million ounces more than estimated in April. Interestingly, total non-investment silver demand grew on the back of pure industrial silver demand. Think photovoltaic solar cells, which hit the highest level in history.
Yep, and that's this. The industrial plus photography plus jewelry plus silverware would be all the non-investment. And I think it was Ted Butler who brought that out. And he's exactly right. They literally, more silver was used in industrial usage than was brought out of the mines, which is massive. And this isn't stopping. This isn't stopping. As a matter of fact, there is a meeting going on as we speak, or starting in a couple of days, the UN climate change meeting, where they've already agreed to triple the amount of solar green installations by 2030, and the main focus is going to be solar panels. So they want a 5x solar panels, make 5 times as many solar panels. So if right now, if they did this year's 383 million ounces of silver, they want to 5x that, 1.5 billion, 2 billion ounces of silver to go into solar panels. This is the insanity that we're living with, because during the year of the 289 million ounces that went into solar panels at a minimum this year, the price didn't move at all. The price of silver has stayed the same all year. Started the year at $24, and now it's going to $25. Silver should be at $50, $100, $1,000 an ounce, except for the market rigging, obviously.
Well, and that's what Ted Butler was saying. He said in that their numbers don't include the 60 million ounces that went to India in October, or the 10 million that was imported into China in October. Turkey's imports at 26 million for the year. And then he said, or the 3.536 million ounces that left the ETFs on Friday of last week. Do they talk at all about military demand? Because, you know, I will tell you that the article that the Pickaxe came out with, I can't validate it. I can't vouch for it, but I will say it's compelling as hell. I have always talked about 500 ounces of silver in the tip of any Tomahawk cruise missile. Their report went and really exposed the military industrial complex's need for silver. And the whole article basically said that the whole reason silver is being held down is because of the military industrial complex and the need for silver to fight the wars that they fund both sides of and that we're constantly involved with, and the need for high-tech weaponry and silver in order to make it work is extraordinary. And I find it interesting, not only are they off on the numbers on the things that they talk about, but they omit what potentially could be more than all of this demand. And maybe this is why you see countries like India importing over the past year and a half 365 million ounces of silver. And all of these countries doing all they can to drain the ETFs, BlackRock draining PSLV, or all of these massive deliveries out of SLV or the exchange for physical. I think the big money understands what is coming. And I give Keith Neumeyer credit for leaving the Silver Institute. Keith is a friend. Keith is a businessman. He's not a geologist. He sees things clearly for what they really are. And when you see Keith saying, look, for the first time ever, I'm seeing auto manufacturers at the shows I'm speaking at, you have companies that are trying to literally go over the counter. In other words, go directly to the source. So there's a lot of demand, I think, that is being fulfilled that isn't really showing up on the Silver Institute's numbers. I think there is an effort by a lot of big players to disintermediate the traditional channels by which gold and silver are accumulated. And so, yeah, I don't put a lot of stock in those numbers. And like always, your investigative, your journalistic investigative merits are as good as anyone in the industry. And I think that's exactly what's going on. I mean, it doesn't make sense. Price discovery in this industry doesn't make sense. And when you show factually what you're saying right there, it just should make people that much more convinced that before this all breaks, the return on silver is potentially life-changing. And I think what you're saying only adds fuel to that fire.
One of the things I want to run by you, because you're more in tune with like the global dynamics of the BRICS and all that's going on. One of the things that came out in the reports just recently, why it jumped so high, is China. China is absolutely massively building solar farms and panels and has incentives to get it done ASAP. And to me, this is the end game in play. The meeting at the end of this week that starts with the UN, there's 200 different countries going to sign on to, hey, we're going to triple the amount of solar power that we're going to install. What a wonderful way for the shorts on the COMEX to say, hey, force majeure, we have to save the world and make triple the amount of silver needs to go into solar panels. It's not our fault. We're gonna walk away from these naked shorts that we just can't get out of and just claim force majeure because 200 countries agreed that we have to save the world with massive amounts of silver. I think that might be in play. As far as India, I do have a guy in India that contacted me about the 60 million ounces that went in October. He said he thinks it's 90 million in November and it'll probably be 120 million in December. Just as a heads up. And that's kind of what they did last year. It was like 3 months in a row. They just exploded and ended up with 300 million.
And this comes at a time when the registered category is 1,794% rehypothecated. In other words, there's 1,800% more contracts for every real bar of silver or 5 bars of silver backing it. And so, yeah, I mean, to that point, 1 out of 18 people gets their silver, the rest get force majeure, get cash settled. And I'm sure they would employ all sorts of measures to even stop it before it even gets that far. And I also think it's important, it's interesting, the timing of this, right? So this meeting with all of these nations is in Dubai, in the United Arab Emirates. And it's very interesting. I have talked for 4 years about my ultimate belief that this is being done intentionally, that Jared Bernstein, the lead economic advisor for the United States government, his whole thesis is to lose the dollar's reserve status. It's a privilege we can no longer afford. So you weaponize the dollar, you tell Saudi Arabia, hey, we're going green. You watch Saudi Arabia and all the OPEC countries join the Belt Road. You see them join BRICS, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, the New Development Bank, and then tell folks in Davos they're open to taking other currencies for oil. They're open. Okay, fine. Well, just today I read, and this is, as far as I'm concerned, the biggest shot across the bow that we've seen yet. The United Arab Emirates officially stops using dollar for oil trades. UAE is eyeing potential oil and gas deals with up to 15 countries, including China, Russia, and Egypt, all of whom are BRICS members and advocates for the continued de-dollarization. The UAE is not following this de-dollarization trend. I think they are really setting a trend. When a player of that magnitude not only is admitted into the BRICS, but tells the world no more dollars for oil, it's a scary situation. And I have often said, all hell breaks loose when this same statement comes out of OPEC and Saudi Arabia. You can see the groundwork that is being put into place. China and Saudi Arabia signing a huge deal in currency swaps, which is basically, these two countries will trade in each other's currencies instead of the dollar and the high interest rates to buy dollars. They'll trade with each other, give each other preferred rates, and sidestep the SWIFT. All of this is chipping away at the dollar hegemony, but I find it incredibly interesting that all of this coincides at the UAE within a few days of them publicly declaring no more dollars for oil. You can see where this is going, and this is why the big money is front-running the acquisition and the draining of the exchanges. This is why they've gone to such great lengths. You know, you got to give them credit. They're crafty and very talented at what they do, diabolical almost. But they are using the suppression of the Western paper markets to accumulate all of the world's commodities. You look at President Wadudu, I think that's Wadudu or Nadudu, from where is he? Indonesia. He says we need to create a OPEC-style cartel for rare earth metals. Well, along with signing an executive order to go green and an increase in solar panels, you need batteries. Well, where are all the metals found to make your batteries? In Indonesia and in the Eurasian continent. We have not thought this through very well. So that's why you see these countries not only draining the physical supply, but buying interest in the mines and mining in their own home countries, even if it's uneconomical today. But it's one of these things, and I like this phrase, logarithmic decay, little by little by little by little, then all at once. And all of these little chops at the system are going to at once break when we see, I believe, OPEC say we're taking other currencies for oil. To see the UAE say this is a huge step in that direction. And how does that fit into metals and cryptocurrencies in your own possession? Because these are things that have no counterparty risk. And these are things that, in particular, the metals, you need to build an infrastructure or a war chest if you are a sovereign entity. And so that's exactly what they're doing. They're beating us at our own game. That game was to hold down the price of metals to make the dollar and the US bond market seem stronger than it was because of Gibson's paradox, the inverse relationship between real interest rates and the price of gold. So they held down the price of gold because it was the canary in the mine shaft. But what they didn't take into account are countries like China and India and United Arab Emirates and Saudi Arabia. And all these countries are saying, thank you very much, we're going to stand for delivery. And like you said, we're very close to that moment where it's force majeure, where there's 1,800% more paper contracts than there are bars. Doesn't that sound familiar? I think that's what the Hunt brothers noticed in 1980. We are no different today than they were then. In fact, I could argue that the whole system is far more leveraged and undercapitalized. And you see events like this happening globally, and the transition away from the dollar immediately, that impacts not only the gold and silver market, but I also believe, excuse me, that we will see when that moment happens, within a few days or weeks, the price of a force majeure baloney COMEX London Bullion Exchange market system that can actually be rehypothecated by 1,800% will move to a place that is more like cash and carry, like the Shanghai Gold Exchange. And that's why I think you slowly see them turning up the heat, where silver is $2 an ounce more in Shanghai and gold's $100 an ounce more in Shanghai than it is in London and New York. They will continue to turn up the heat. They will arbitrage all the metal over there. And simultaneously, you will see all hell break loose. And what you're talking about only adds credibility to that statement that this green endeavor in this digital world we live in, there's not enough silver. And I'm not going to continue to plug the Pickaxe article other than to say one thing. It's compelling when you look at the research he's done and talk about all of the silver going in to aid and abet the military industrial complex's endeavor of continual war. And that's not even included in all of this. And it makes an argument that this is the real reason that they're lying about all this stuff, because that's how they keep the engine going. And I don't think they really factored in the rest of the world coming to a place where they're going to stand for delivery at any cost. So yeah, I think you're on to something, Bix, and it's just another piece of the puzzle that when this breaks, it will be something that I don't think people can imagine. Now, I don't sell silver to get wealthy. I sell it because it is wealth. And I think it is the most compelling investment I've ever heard of. But I'd never sell gold as an investment. But this is, or silver rather. And when you look at where it's priced, where the price ratio is, its historical context, geologically and price, going back thousands of years, the increase in demand in solar, in warfare, in green, in digital, and the decrease in supply, where again, we're going to have another shortfall last year and a third shortfall this year in 2023. At what point does the whole system break? And what you're talking about, when you have mainstream revising numbers and saying, yeah, we're running out of silver, well, maybe it's more and more of this type of information that wakes up the public. Unfortunately, I feel it's going to be an event where all of a sudden silver just becomes unobtainium and goes to the moon, where before the mainstream wakes up. Your people will be nicely positioned comfortably in both cryptos and in metals in their own possession when this whole thing breaks. And if you see OPEC say, hey, we're done taking dollars, thanks for the memories, you guys are going green anyway, you signed an executive order saying so, like that. Yep. Every country on the planet dumps dollars. And if you think inflation is bad now, watch what happens when the money supply in this country increases tenfold because the world dumps all the dollars and interest rates have to spike to compensate. I think what you are saying only adds credibility to this whole thesis that we've been talking about, you and I, for a very, very, very long time.
I think, the best thing that I find about this new angle I'm looking at silver from, I don't have to rely on the numbers out of the COMEX or the inventory numbers or JP Morgan, any of the silver, the regulators or the CPMs of the world or the silver institutes. I'm relying on a completely different industry with adults in it. The solar power industry has great data and actual projects. You can see the solar panels going into these massive fields. The data is good. The data is sound in that industry. And it's just taking that data and backtracking it into the silver, how much silver is used per watt, that really shines the light on the criminality of the silver reporting. And if this continues along this path, right now they're projecting over 500 million gigawatts or 500 gigawatts going in next year, which would be, again, 383 million ounces at a minimum. There is no silver for that. I don't believe that's about half of the industrial. It's more than half probably of the industrial silver that will be used. And that's not counting all the new TVs, all the new cell phones, all the new electric cars and regular cars. Even regular cars are increasing the amount of silver in every single regular car. This is a train wreck waiting for a moment for it all to kind of stop, because the silver market cannot, because it's been price suppressed for so long. Silver is being used in places it shouldn't be used, or we're throwing away flat screen TVs that we really shouldn't be throwing away, or maybe it shouldn't, so much silver shouldn't go in on all the car functionality or all the throwaway electronics we have these days. But it is being used that way. It is being overused and used out of place because the price is so low. People don't value silver because the price has been rigged at below $25 since 1980. This is ridiculous. And this is what you get for what you did. This is the payment for what, at least 40, 50 years of price suppression. The United States is going to wake up one day and have no more silver at any price. And it's completely our fault for allowing this rig job to go on for so long.
Yeah, I agree. I think the silver is more important than the gold. And you see the central banks buying more gold than at any time in history and doubling down on their acquisitions. And the same thing is true of silver. Gold is the barometer of the health of the currency. Silver is the tool that you need to make the system work. And although there is a 90% correlation in their movements throughout all of history, I think it's very obvious. I think it's very obvious that they've been holding down the price of gold and silver for the same yet different reasons. They've been holding down gold to make the system, the Western system, seem stronger than it was. The bond market and the dollar and the pound and all of the Western banks that played along this game. But silver's a different deal altogether. And I think that, you know, there's something a little bit more sinister behind the silver side of things. And I do believe that they have been holding it down to meet an agenda. Like you said, there's silver going elsewhere that they're not talking about. I find it interesting. I mean, if you Google how much silver is in the tip of a Tomahawk cruise missile, you get 500 ounces. That's what it will say, almost exactly. Why do they not talk about that in the Silver Institute reports? I find that to be slightly interesting. But the bottom line is that in this world that is moving green and digital and that has advanced weaponry, that needs silver in its guidance systems and whatnot, we will have not only bankrupted the country of the silver and the gold, which is all being sent eastward, but we will put ourselves at a huge strategic disadvantage to the rest of the world. And when you look at the BRICS countries and you put into the mix the Eurasian Economic Union and the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, whom the president of Belarus, I've been saying they're all going to join together for 3 years. President of Belarus just said they need to join together and calling for a meeting. Along with the Belt Road Initiative, you're at 85% of human population. And all of these countries own all of the commodities. They own all of the rare earth metals. They own all the gold, all the silver, all the oil. You put all these countries into it, you're talking 80% of the world's oil, 75% of the world's natural gas, and the majority of the commodities. And we will wake up at a massive disadvantage globally in everything from technology to warfare as it is now. Now, maybe you know the numbers. I don't. But last I heard, it was something to the extent of we have to import north of 50% of all the silver for everything that we need in this country. Do you know those numbers by chance?
I don't know the numbers, but a lot of the silver we import is through through electronics. We'll import all our TVs, and they each have maybe an ounce of silver in them. I mean, silver is so spread out. And one of the beautiful things about silver is the recycling is going to be extremely difficult unless the price gets up into the thousands of dollars. You're not going to go into the dump and try to pull out every micro ounce of silver unless the price says, you know, we need it so badly. It is so valuable. We need to do it. You know, we've talked for a very long time about this stuff and how each little piece and part contributes to a story that is unbeatable in investing history. In my belief, and I've been in the investing world since the early 80s when I got out of college. Nothing beats what we have right now in silver. And the fact that the price of silver is less than half of its all-time high from 1980 should shock the world. And it does to the silver investors. But right now, I think we're seeing the end game. The absolute explosion of silver use in solar panels could be the reason, could be the way to take down the banking cabal without, you know, blaming a speculator or blaming, you know, Sprott or blaming someone who had a lot of money to take down the system, blaming the Hunt brothers. This is, hey, we have to save the world with silver. Get the hell out, JP Morgan. Get the hell out, you know, Jeff Christian, all the price riggers of silver. We need the real stuff. This is the end game for them. I am hoping very much.
Well, here's what it says. Now, I can't vouch for this number, but it says the United States heavy reliance on imported silver, 79% import reliance. So we're importing 79% of our silver. If that really is true, how scary is that? You know, and I don't know that, I haven't vetted that number, but that's what I'm reading, 79% import reliant on here in the United States. So yeah, you're right. I mean, it is. There are very few investments that have the dynamics that this does: an increase in demand, a decrease in supply, a disconnect between its 5,000 year history, both geologically and price relationship to gold. Um, I don't think you could ask for a better thing. You have a curse, Bix, and that curse is that you see things far before they happen. And maybe it's not a curse, maybe it's a blessing. I think that what you are doing, what you are saying, people around the world who have been watching you for a long time and listening to you will thank you, because there are very few things that I think will allow you to get out of the way of what's coming. And aside from the massive potential that you have, where you don't just survive, but you thrive, the number one thing that I hear people say to me when they talk about Big Swear is, if you don't hold it, you don't own it. And I think just like FU is a nasty thing to say to someone or to hear, I think counterparty risk will be just like that in the next several months into 2024, where by March of 2024, there's $112 million that have been lent to the banks that are distressed has to be paid back, where counterparty risk could really, really come into play. And I think the concept of having things in your own possession with no counterparty risk is something that people will thank you for, aside from showing them the 2 or 3 places that you can safely go in a system that's about to go haywire. And I hate talking this way. I don't sell gold and silver out of fear, but honest to God, I'm afraid. And when you see something like the United Arab Emirates saying no more dollars for oil, that's not something that you should discount. And it's interesting that this meeting is taking place in the United Arab Emirates within a week of that announcement. I really believe
it's not only taking place, but the guy in charge of the UN, the whole conference, is the guy who runs their oil company for the UAE.
Yeah, well, and there you go. And you know, you look at France. France did a massive liquid natural gas deal with the United Arab Emirates and paid for it in yuan. So sides are being chosen, lines are being drawn. And when I talk about the geopolitical aspect of losing the world reserve standard, I think it dovetails into why you own precious metals and cryptos in your own possession. They are outside the matrix, they are in your possession, and they are wealth. And in the case of silver, it's wealth that's outlived everything the world's thrown at it for 5,000 years, including 2 world wars and hyperinflation and the Great Depression and every pandemic. And this will be no different. And this is why you see such a concerted effort by the people in the know, the central banks, to find every creative way to drain as much as they possibly can. And they've done it in a very methodical fashion. Most people say, well, why not just take it all? They got enough money. You do that, you cut off your nose to spite your face. You do it slowly. You suppress the price. You keep it volatile. You make everyone say, why the hell would I want that? We have 40-year high inflation and the world's in chaos. And what did it do? Well, to their point, I agree. People are well-read who say that. They're just reading the wrong stuff. And when it all comes out, that this suppression is real, that the rehypothecation is real, that the draining of the exchanges has been real, that a world we are moving into, like Zoltan Pozar says, away from opaque debt instruments into transparency like blockchain and commodities like gold and silver, people are going to be left in the dust because the people in this country believe the only road to retirement is paved with mutual funds, stock certificates, and 10-year treasuries. And that's going to be a real big problem as this continues to play out. Silver's the best place to be, in my opinion, in the world. And I say that as someone who owns metals companies, so take it for what it is. But I think I try to be objective, because if you're not objective and you do YouTubes where millions of people watch you, you're exposed as an idiot and a shill real quick if you're not genuine. And if nothing else, you're smarter than I am. You've come up with so many great things. You blow my mind. That car ride I had with you from Texas to Oklahoma, I don't know if my mind has ever been blown as much as it was listening to you talk to me one-on-one. All of it resonating in a way that I can't even explain. We all owe you a debt of gratitude as well. So thank you for letting me be a small part talking to your community. And I'm honored to do so. You're one of the few people, not only in this industry, but that I've ever met who truly gets it and is a leader. You're not a follower. You are a maverick. You see things and say things that other people don't. And I give you tons of credit for it. Always have. And even if they don't always play out the way you think, your creativity and your research is second to none. And I think you're onto something here. The industrial demand for silver is going to overwhelm very quickly. And then you have a battle between the industrials and the investors, and the industrials will win. So they're going to make sure that they get their silver in hand quickly. This is one of these deals that can break in the blink of an eye. So while it is flush, when you listen to guys like Ted Butler say there's a massive shortage of industrial sized bars, it doesn't really sometimes, it doesn't compute, because, well, why are premiums low and availability great down here? Well, the way I look at it is that's just kind of a precursor, if you will. It will trickle on down. And one event, all it will take is one bank bail-in or one horrible thing in a world that seems to be giving us horrible things every day, that will change the world. And so, I don't want to keep rambling. I do that sometimes, but I appreciate you and your sincerity and what you bring that's so unique. No one says this stuff but you. And I'm kind of like your parrot. I'll tell the world, Bix is onto something. Check it out.
Well, you have definitely helped so many Road to Ruta people get into physical when they're saying, Bix, should I buy SLV? I'm like, no, this is so big. It's got to be physical in your own possession. I mean, there are times when you can play with leverage and things like that. Now is not the time to do that. Now is the time to get your assets in your own possession and protect your family, protect your friends. Andy, what do you got for the Road to Ruta people?
Yep.
How do they get in touch with you, and how can they get more or their first physical silver?
So as I mentioned to you before we hit record, for your people, so the best way for your people not only to get white glove service, my brokers will give your people white glove service, is to send an email. And in this particular email, I want you to title it a little differently. Send it to info@MilesFranklin and call it Cyber Week Bix sent me, or Bix Cyber Week. Anything that mentions Bix, we're in Cyber Week. And I have a lot of Silver Eagles in stock 2023. I loaded up on as many as I could, and I'm going to sell them minimum 100 coin order. Okay. So if they want to buy less, we'll still hook them up, but the price won't be quite as good. My operation said, please make it 100 coin order. So I'm going to acquiesce to them, but I'm going to offer to your listeners for $4.99 over the price of silver for 2023 Silver Eagles. They're in stock. That's 80 cents less than we're selling them for typically. And when I look at the online companies, almost every one of them, their maximum discount is about $5.79, the cheap ones. So it'll be as good of a price as people will find. We will answer questions on anything from what we've just talked about and the geopolitical side of things, or the industrial side of things, or to precious metals IRAs, or whatever people want to talk about, we'll do that. But if you just want to buy 2023 Silver Eagles in a country where, I don't know, almost half the country has passed legislation saying this is legal tender now to be used for all debts, public and private, including paying your property tax, I think there's a lot to be said for owning American Silver Eagles. And for your listeners, for the rest of this week, $4.99 over the price of silver.
And there is, you guys know that I love.
And that's on 100 coins. That's a delivered price, by the way.
All right. So contact Andy, info@milesfranklin.com. You guys know I love Silver Eagles for many reasons. The main reason it's the safest of all coins. If you live in America, it's the safest of all silver to own. And if they want to confiscate and nationalize and do whatever the hell they're going to do for the good of the people, they're always for the good of the people because the monetary system is crashed. The very last thing they nationalize would be the Silver Eagle, because it is a numismatic coin as designated in the law. You bought it legally and they can't take it from you legally. They could try. I'm not saying, I think nationalization will happen all around the world if the banks fail. Just keep that in mind. But if you want the safest of safe, buy the national coin of your country, and that's the best you can do.
I want to say one other thing. Now, I'm not saying I believe this, and I may have told you this before. I may have said it on your show before, but Jim Sinclair was my friend. God rest his soul. And he said this publicly several times, so I'm going to say it to your listeners again one more time. It's not a secret. Jim said to me, Andy, I'm Jewish. I said, really? He said, yeah, I had trouble in Catholic school when I was a kid, so I took my mother's name of Sinclair. My dad was a man named Murray Seligman, who was a big commodity trader. I think he helped unwind the Hunt brothers position. And he said to me that my family is the Goldman and Goldman Sachs. And he told me this at dinner one night in Connecticut. So again, this is coming from Jim. I can't vouch for it, but he said he was told by a family member that there would be two resets. And you could argue we're in the midst of it right now, the first being a man-made reset. And I believe we are in the midst of a man-made reset, by the way, personally. And he said that will fail. And when Mother Nature comes in and resets the system, the US government will confiscate any gold and silver that is not American made. Now, all I can say is he told me that and he believed it. Let you think for yourself if that's real or not. But I will tell you, he said that publicly. Bill Holter says it publicly. They were partners for a very long time. And that's why when we did one of a very, very large order of over $50 million, Bill was adamant, only American Eagles, only pre-65 junk silver, and only US denominated or US minted gold coins. So who knows? Who knows where we're going, Bix? It's a crazy world, but Jim was my friend, and I think he believed it. So who knows? It's just another reason to maybe own US minted coins.
I love Jim, and he was my first break in getting my word out there back in 2000, around 2000. I was writing for Le Metropole Cafe with Bill Murphy, and Jim posted one of my letters to I forgot. I read it the other day. I was like, oh my God, I didn't know anything back then. But he said, this is a great job from a nobody. And I was like, holy shit, that was me. And amazing, man. And I mean, from the work I've done at the US Mint, it is clear that they are preparing to go to a gold and silver standard with the technology that they have now to scan the crystalline structure of a coin and put a identifier on it and put it on a blockchain. And that is the future. And that's what the head of the Mint, David Ryder, was doing before the Biden administration came in. And as soon as Ventures Gibson came in, she told the head of sales to stop selling his silver eagles. That should tell you something right there. So,
well, if I were telling someone new to this industry, there are two videos you must watch. The two best videos, the two best I've ever seen in 34 years would be that one. I couldn't believe my ears. I couldn't believe what he said. I think it was one of the craziest, best interviews I've ever heard. And Chris Marcus's interview, the same one that Andrew Maguire did with Bart Chilton, where he admitted the same thing, that the whole system was rigged and JP Morgan was behind it, in essence. And if you want to really know what's going on from the horse's mouth, your interview with, what was his name?
Jack Sermon.
Jack Sermon, the guy that developed these 30 years ago, 40 years ago almost. And Chris Marcus's interview with Bart Chilton, which talks about all the stuff you've been talking about, manipulation and suppression on COMEX, from the head of the CFTC who admitted it and then died a week later. They're the two most influential and I don't even know the word I'm looking for, but they affected me more than anything ever. And I think everyone needs to listen to that. If you haven't listened to that 3-part interview that Bix did this summer, you have to go back and listen to it. It'll blow your mind, period.
Awesome. Andy, thank you so much. Hey, today is November 28th, Tuesday. How long is that
We'll
deal
do that through the end of business on Friday. And
you guys hear it.
A few more days, we'll do that for your listeners, and just out of great appreciation, admiration, and respect. So thank you. It's the least I can do. And look forward to picking up with you soon.
All right, Andy. Thanks so much. Talk to you later.
See you, brother.